to be part of this. And Sebastiano is not only an amazing winemaker, he's an amazing friend, and it's an honor to do this side by side with you, Sebastiano.
Thank you. Likewise.
I'll kick it off because, and a lot of you may be asking, why is an American? And I like to preface, I am technically a Texan, speaking to you from New York about Chianti Classico. And you know what, Sebastiano, I want you to answer that question because I ask myself that a lot. Why am I the guy who does this? I have some ideas, but I'm curious to get your thoughts.
That's a good question. I would say that you like us, that we take you out to see wonderful matches of football, and and we, there you go, Fiorentina. We're playing tonight, so go Fiorentina tonight. And I think that you've been a great help for us for let people know the greatness of Chianti Classico, because unfortunately, we have a long history, but we share the name with another appellation that does not have a terroir per se, and that has probably hampered the growth of this wine region, which is a beautiful wine region that people should definitely visit. And I think you probably like the underdogs, and I think that there's great potential in Chianti Classico, and I would like to thank you for all the work you've done all these years.
Thank you very much. I've been working with, so just a little bit about myself. I've been a sommelier here in the United States for about 20 years. And I've been very fortunate to fall in love with Italian wine early on in my career. And sometimes I think it takes an outsider to kind of reignite something and bring it to a different light. And that's kind of been my role in Chianti Classico. I've had the honor of actually speaking to Italian journalists about their own country and region. I've been in China for Chianti Classico to talk about it in China. I've been in all throughout Italy and then all throughout the United States as well. And so it's super exciting. And I just want a show of hands, how many people have been to Florence and or Siena and the Chianti Classico in between? This is the beauty of I think, and Sebastiano, I think you recognize this. It's obviously one of the most beautiful places on the planet. It's well touristed, but the thing that always drives me to Chianti Classico are the nooks and crannies, all the turns. It may only be 40 kilometers or is it 70 kilometers between Siena and Florence. But if you take the long cut, as I like to say, instead of the shortcut, you discover so much. And I've been to Chianti Classico a lot in the past 6 years, and every time I'm there, I learn something new. If you have any questions, please ask, comments. Sebastiano, jump in. I have a pictures and presentation and history. I'm a nerd, so I like to get super into the idea and the passion behind the wine and the place and the people. And as a Texan, I have zero Italian heritage. I'm in America what they call a WASP, which is a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. My family comes from Scotland. I have zero Italian heritage, but I learned to speak Italian. I live an Italian lifestyle. My daughter's name is Beatrice, who was Dante's muse. And it's something that Italy has opened their arms to me. And I think that's one reason I've loved it so much. And I'm glad that everybody's had the experience to go there, because that's part of it. The wine isn't just the drink, it's the people, and the cultural connection between beverage and people is what's brought us all together. So I'm going to share my screen real quick.
By the way, that's a view from my house, the one behind you.
I know. I took it from your house. Here, I'll duck.
Yeah, I thought I recognized it.
So that's me. That's also in Sebastiano's house. I got to put on a knight's helmet, was my boyhood dream. Which I'm very excited about. So I don't think a lot of people know, but Chianti, the area between Florence and Siena, is been a viticultural zone for time immemorial with the Etruscans, the pre-Etruscans, post-Etruscans. But what makes today so interesting, and I think the beauty of Chianti Classico, is it's in every facet of every part of the region you go into is wine. And so what this Black Rooster, this thing that we know as Chianti Classico, started as basically a militia group that wanted to protect the lands. And one thing that I love here, and you see it's formed in 1306, is the Lega del Chianti. And Sebastiano can speak ad nauseum to this because his family has been also in the area since the beginning of time, I'm going to say, 1,000.
First document of my family, it's in Badia Passignano. We were just where we witnessed that the contract that was stipulated in 1086, if I'm not mistaken.
So a few years.
Just a few years.
1086, the Caponi family has been a vital part of the area of Chianti. And so I just love this poem. This was written by basically the Podestas, like the leader of the group in the 1400s. So on the open hills to never tire of planting vines of the best kind or of attending to the plant of Bacchus. The fact that a militia group was writing poems to vines is for me just heartwarming and amazing. For those that have been there, it's settled in between Florence on your left and Siena on your right. The two nation states or republics that fought each other for a very long time. And if you talk to Sebastiano, Florence, obviously we all know is the victor, and for him is the better city. But then you go talk to the Sienese, and even though they were stuck in the medieval times, they always bring up that one victory they had in, I don't remember the year, but it's pretty funny. Say it again, 1150?
Battle of Montaperti, 1240.
And it's ingrained in the children that when you're in Siena and you talk to them about Florence, they'll be like, well, we beat them once in 1250. As all of you have been to the area, some of the most important pieces of art, the Renaissance was created there. Dante, one of my favorite poets, was there before he got kicked out. You have gardens. This is actually also from your house. I think this is the picture that I have on my screen behind me right now.
Yes.
But I think the beauty of what's in the wine is indicative of what's all around you in that surrounding, and what makes Chianti Classico so unique. Just if you can use your button to like put thumbs up or raise your hand. How many people know why it's called Chianti, like Classico? Why don't we just call it Chianti? So what's interesting, this map to my left, the original, and Sebastiano, if you'd like to speak to this too, originally when Chianti was formed, so it's the oldest appellation on the planet in 1716.
Right.
And it originally was what provinces within
the original in 1716, when it was established by decree by Cosimo III, the Grand Duke of Tuscany, the land where you can make the Chianti wine was the boroughs of Castellina, Radda, and Gaiole, and the Valley of Greve, up to the Passo of Spedaluzzo. Passo Spedaluzzo is basically the hilltop that you have when you go past Vicchio Maggio and you go up the hill. There is a kind of an incline going up. That's the Passo Spedaluzzo. That's the border between the Valley of Greve and the northern part of the commune of Greve, where Strada is, for example. So that was the original area of production since 1716.
And so why did Cosimo de' Medici III decide that he had to litigate what the region was?
Well, one hypothesis is that Queen Anne of England was a big fan of Chianti Classico and of Chianti. Sorry, at the time it was just called Chianti. The issue we had was to ship it to England because the shipping originally was done with barrels. But of course, we had to take the longer tour through the Straits of Gibraltar and up north. So by the time the wine got in England, it was mostly of it was evaporated or maybe damaged by the trip. I mean, it was different for the people from Bordeaux because it was a much quicker trip from Bordeaux going to Bruges or going to London. So what the producer of Chianti did was to go to the producer of glass blowers of Colle Valdezza. This we're talking about the beginning of the 1700s, about 1704, 1705, and they invented a new mean of transportation, which was the fiasco. So by using the fiasco and by using the straw, you remember that Chianti was a big production, of grano, of wheat, and so they used the straw from the wheat to protect this kind of fiasco and to give them stability, because the glass blowing did not allow for a flat bottom; it was a round bottom. And so that allowed the wine to be shipped all the way to London and Bruges without being tainted by the trip. And Queen Anne of England was a big fan of this wine, but there was a problem that there was a habit in Tuscany of making the wine in the Chianti style by areas around Chianti. There's Willy Franchi was complaining about farmers, well, not farmers, agents, or fattori, what we call them, agents, estate agents that were making Chianti even a Pian di Scò, which is Pian di Scò. It's all the way up in the mountains towards Arezzo. And so there was complaints by merchants in London on fake Chianti. So the hypothesis is that was a way to protect the production of Chianti by establishing where it could be made. And so that's probably the reason why in 1716 Cosimo III made that decree.
And that's, I think, again, goes to show the amazing history, and you've got this balance of culture, history, politics in wine. And I've always said, when I give wine classes, one of the reasons, my degree is actually in biochemistry. I was headed to medical school before I found out I was better at drinking than medicine in college. And I always say, in 750 milliliters of fermented grape juice, you have every ology known to Earth. Meteorology, geology, biology, it's all there. And when you intertwine economics, art, culture, that's the beauty of wine. And it's so exciting to have this history. And Chianti Classico is the epitome of it all. Now, Sebastiano, I think the one thing that's so interesting, this has been the modern challenge of Chianti. Before I think we should talk about your wine, is why is it called Classico today? Why do we have this when we're in the store? Why do we see Chianti and Chianti Classico? And you and I could talk about the difference, and everyone's tasting probably, in my opinion, one of the greatest Chianti Classicos known to man.
Thank you, very kind. The reason why it's called Chianti Classico is because of the popularity of the wine. Popularity that was very kind of enhanced by the English court, and Queen Anne, as I said, was a big fan. With the advent of the Hanover family, the taste of the court changed because they were Germans, and so they liked more kind of Riesling and wines from the northern part of Europe than the southern part. And but the popularity kind of raised again with immigration, the Italian immigration to the United States, because what is the base of Italo-American cuisine is the sauce. So the tomato sauce is a great pairing for the Sangiovese, because the acidity of tomato makes the Sangiovese sweeter and makes it more I would say, approachable even from a younger age. And I would give you an example of the popularity of the wine. There's a book written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle called The Sign of Four, and it's the second adventure of Sherlock Holmes. And in the book, Sherlock Holmes goes to somebody's house, and the host asks Sherlock Holmes if he wants a glass of wine. And he tells him that he only has Chianti and Madeira in his house. And that book was published in Philadelphia and London in 1876. And that gives you the popularity of the wine at the time to be in a bestseller, because that was definitely a bestseller. And the problem was that, again, the popularity of the wine, the demand was huge, the supply was low because it's a small region. And so the wine kind of lost its sense of place, because there were other wines made in the style of Chianti that were shipped to America. Actually, the wine took the name from the harbor where it left. So you had Chianti Napoli, Chianti Livorno, Chianti Genoa, depending from the harbor where wine left. And Italians are by definition, the famous journalist in Italy called Indro Montanelli that says the Italians are contemporary people, meaning that we don't remember our past and we're not interested in our future. We live in the present. So the demand of Chianti is huge. Let's make more Chianti. If you think about it, and if you think about what happened in Prosecco in more recent years, it's exactly the same thing that happened with us in the past, in 120 years from 120 years ago. So basically, what happened was that this wine became lost its sense of place and became a style of wine, became a nondescript kind of wine made with a Sangiovese because of the recipe of Barone di Casoli that he wrote. But less lost so much a sense of place that if you're in the United States, or if you go, I think they ship. I don't know, they don't. If you go even to Germany to Lidl, you'll find Carlo Rossi brand. You probably won't don't find Chianti, but you'll find Carlo Rossi brand. Well, in the United States, you still can buy a jug of 5 liters of Carlo Rossi brand, which is made in called Chianti, Carlo Rossi Chianti, which is made in Central California. So that is the main problem with our region. The producers of the region did not do much to fight this practice. They only kind of woken up a little late, because the first kind of real attempt to contain this phenomena was in 1924, when 34 producers of the original region of Chianti founded the Consortium for the Defense of the Typical Wine of Chianti and adopted the Black Rooster, the Gallo Nero, as a symbol.
That's, as everyone can tell, Sebastiano is a depth of knowledge, and when your family is in the same place for over 1,000 years, there's a lot of built up information.
Oh yeah, way too much.
I think, you kind of segued perfectly into something about, Chianti is a brand. And I think the thing that we've been trying to talk about, and you and I, Sebastiano, have been doing this all over the world. In one thing, I'm so happy, Faye, you brought Chianti Classico to the forefront. And the fact that we're doing 3 over this month is, how many people have ever looked at Chianti Classico in the same way they look at Burgundy or Barolo? How many of you have ever sat down and tried 6 Chianti Classico side by side versus 3 or 4 Burgundy, or 3 or 4 Barolo, or 3 or 4 Bordeaux? Anybody?
I can raise my hand. Yes, I can do.
One, Sebastiano and I, Faye. It's interesting. You travel around the world and talk to wine professionals. Most haven't, because we've always approached Chianti Classico as a thing rather than actually what it is as a place. And what you have in your bottle today is a specific, unique identity of one part of Chianti Classico. And next week when we try La Micine, you'll see the differences. So everybody right now, just really take in these unique flavors. And Sebastiano is going to talk about that, because when you try the 3 wines over the next few weeks, they're totally different. And that's the beauty of Chianti Classico. And I just want to show a picture again on the PowerPoint, because so here are 3 different parts of Chianti Classico. On the left is an area called Radda, and this is all Albarese, and it's really high in altitude. And here in the middle, you're in Lamele, different aspect. There's so many nooks and crannies within Chianti Classico that make the wines unique. And what we've been trying to express to people is that it's not a monolith. It's a diverse, beautiful region where at home you can have 4 or 5 different Chianti Classico from different producers from different regions, just like you'd have something from Gevis, Chambertin, Chambolle Musigny, and Vosne Romanée. And that's what makes it so special. We already went through the history, but just looking at this map, if you can see my little pointer, like up here in San Casciano Valdepesa, and down here versus Castelnuovo Beredenga, about how far is that, Sebastiano? Crow flies.
Driving wise or crow flies?
Crow flies.
50 miles?
So it's 50 miles. And would you contend to me that the wines in San Casciano Valdepesa versus Castelnuovo Beredenga are extremely unique within themselves, and you side by side you'd be able to, for the most part, even though they're both Sangiovese, express themselves very, very differently.
Oh yeah. It's a completely different terroir. It's like saying Gevrey Chambertin versus I don't know, Santenay. Completely
Right.
different product.
And that's what you know I've been trying to spend years talking to people all over the world about, because understanding that Chianti Classico is not just one thing, but it's lots of things. And even though that makes it a little more confusing, I think it energizes the excitement because there's more discovery. So when you're tasting these wines, we'll talk about where we are, and that leads us right into to you, Sebastiano, in Greve in Montefiorale. I'm just going to skip real quick. So if you would like to talk real quick, and then I'll go back to your face, I'll stop sharing. But this is Montefiorale, which is in Greve, and I guess we go back. Sorry, oops, my bad. I want to just show everybody one thing. So Greve is here. So we're in the northeastern quadrant of the appellation. And then within Greve, we're in a small subregion called Montefiorale. And then we'll get straight into Calcinaia, because you can see this is where the vineyards are located.
Yep. So Montefiorale, it's a small area in the commune of Greve, in the valley of Greve, because the commune of Greve is much larger than the valley, and it's on the left bank of the river Greve. The valley is split in two by the river. On the right bank, we have the Monte del Chianti, which is eminently sandstone, and we find the rock called Macigno. And on the left bank, instead, we have an island of calcareous soil, which is atypical for the commune of Greve, more typical for you'll find the same kind of soil in Castellina and going down in Barberino and Gaiole. So it's a unique area for the township of Greve. And in this kind of island of chalk, there is Montefiorale, which has all the wineries of Montefiorale have the vineyards facing east, because we're on the western side. And the fact that we have so much chalk in the soil gives specific characteristics to the wines. The type of stone that you will find in our region will be in the lower part a limestone called Colombino, which is like limestone with a higher content of silicium. And it's called Colombino because it's brown, gray, so it reminds people the dove, the colomba. The funny thing, the difference between Florentine and Siena, in Siena it's called Palombino because in Siena they call the doves not Colombi but Palombi. So that's another difference between Florence and Siena. And the other rock, the white limestone, is called Alberese. And then you find, as you go up the hill, you find Alberese in its kind of more schist form, which is called Galestro, which is the schist form of the Alberese. And it's the vineyard of the Montefiorale area go roughly from the bottom to the river is at 200 meters above sea level, and then all the way up in the mountain above around 550 meters above sea level. Today we had the festival, Montefiorale di Vino, and we are in the association that was founded in 2015. There are 15 producers right now.
What, so let's talk, everybody has, first off, I think we haven't chin. So everybody grab your glass. I know we're past it, but let's, to Faye, to Sebastiano, to all of you across the world coming together over a glass of wine. Faye, this is an amazing idea. Chin.
Thank you, Faye. Thank you for setting this up. Great.
Cheers, everybody. So,
I would like to also to show you let me see if I can show it. This is my calamarata with the octopus sauce made by my lovely wife, which is next to me. And like Faye's husband doesn't like to be seen in public much.
I think, one.
Okay, she's gonna say hello.
Oh.
Say hello. Hello. There she is.
Hello. Buonasera.
Buonasera.
So Villa Calcinaia, when I first met you, Sebastiano, I'd never tried the wine till we had gone to your estate, and it immediately struck me. Obviously you walk up to this beautiful old house, these amazing vineyards, you look out over the valley, and then you taste the wine. And your wine has an energy to it. And I think that stems first from obviously Sangiovese is kind of, for me, one of the most energetic grapes. And what I mean by energy is I think going back, the beauty of Italian wine versus a lot of other wines in the world is when I taste Italian wine and I feel Italian wine, they're visceral. I always find that Italian wines start in the heart and then move to the brain. They can be both intellectual and they can be just pure enjoyment. And I think that's what makes it so special in my grand opinion of Italian wine, because I will always take Italian wine over most other wines in the world, but I'm very, very biased. Why, like, what's with Villa Calcinai, and this is the Chianti Classico Annata. Mm-hmm. Is this one tell everybody what makes the Annata? So this is your calling card of Chianti Classico.
Yeah.
And what goes into this wine in particular?
Well, this is the most important wine I make because this is my business card to the client. So I always use a simile by saying that this wine is like a first date with the customer. So better be good, because if the first date doesn't go well, there's usually no second date. So it's a very important wine for me. It's made from old vines. So these vineyards were planted, but not by me, but my father and my grandfather between 1959 and 1975. It's a blend of 90% Sangiovese and 10% Canaiolo. Now, for me, winemaking is very much like cooking. So I don't I don't use an inductive method, but a deductive method. Meaning that I vinify all the vineyards separately and I age them separately. And then after 22 months, because I like aging wine quite a bit, in the sense that I don't feel that the wine should go on the market very early, especially even a Chianti Classico Annata. And so we're currently selling 2017. And after 20 months, roughly, we do a blind tasting of all the different vineyards, and we decide what the blend is going to be for the Chianti Classico Annata and for the Chianti Classico Reserva. The Chianti Classico Gran Selezione, which is the higher echelon of Chianti Classico, in my opinion, in my winery, it's Burgundian interpretation, so it's a single vineyard Sangiovese. So I chose 3 different vineyards. In that tasting, what we assess is not whether what we assess is if they're distinctive enough to be bottled on their own or need to be blended with the rest. So when we do decide to blend the different blocks of vines for the Chianti Classico Annata, what we're looking for is what Eric Asimov used the term in an article he wrote on the New York Times, which is a French term called digestible, which means the wine should be, in Italian we say serbevole. It means that you start the bottle and by the trick of magic, the bottle is finished without you knowing about it. So that is what we're looking for in a Chianti Classico Annata. It's not a simple wine, not a simple wine, but it needs to be approachable wine. It needs to be somebody that when you meet a person, it's not a person that laughs at every joke you make, but it's a person that you enjoy being with, and and time goes by without you thinking about it, without you realize already 4 hours gone by and you know how. And the same thing with a bottle of wine. There must be the comment is there must be a hole in it. That's the best comment you can get.
How many people have discovered that their bottle has a hole in it? Laura Trexler, they've already gone. I've one other anecdote. This is very interesting. I just got a text message from a friend of mine from San Francisco. I want to say hi to Terrence Booth. Andy, your brother in San Francisco, just texted me saying, "My brother is watching you, Jeff. He's in Germany. My friend's in San Francisco." That's the amazing world of wine. Through this technology. This is unbelievable. That's hilarious. So everybody on here. So Sangiovese is the varietal of Chianti Classico, one of the most beautiful varietals on earth. Elegant, can be powerful, can be kind of sneaks up on you, but it's not the only varietal that is allowed in Chianti Classico. And just like you said, Sebastiano, could you talk about what Canaiolo brings to the wine, because a lot, it's interesting in the native grapes of Italy. And we can go through. You've got Sangiovese, Canaiolo, Colorino, Mamolo, Malvasia, all these varietals that you never really see on the label of a bottle, like you would see Chardonnay or Riesling or Pinot Gris or something like that. So it's a lot harder to understand. But the beauty of it, just like Sebastiano said about cooking, these little nuances of like Colorino or Cilieggiolo add these touch of nuance. And for you, what does it add to your wine when you add the Colorino?
Canaiolo.
Or Canaiolo.
Well, the Canaiolo is it's a very pretty grape. It does not bring what an important thing. What does that not bring to the party? It does not bring to the party more acidity. It does not bring to the party more tannins. But what it brings spice. Canaiolo is more spicy than fruity, and it brings a little bit of color, and it makes the Sangiovese more, as I said, more approachable. Makes the Sangiovese more easy to drink. So that's what I think is the best contribution to Canaiolo to Sangiovese. It's a very nice companion because it's very different from Sangiovese. So you don't add up things, it brings a completely different side of the story.
I always like to say Sangiovese is like James Brown, and Colorino and the other varietals, if you blend it in, are just the backing band, the people, the bass or the drums, because they don't ever overshadow Sangiovese, but they add these different little bits that allow it to be so beautiful in your glass. And hopefully everybody's really enjoying this wine, because I want to talk now about the food on your table. If you have the gumption, I'd love to know what people are, what you're eating. So just type in, because the menu that Faye sent out is really amazing. And I think Sebastiano, Faye, and I would all be pretty curious about what you're having, because a lot of times with Italian wine, specifically the red wines, they're not cocktail wines. Don't get me wrong. I'm looking at everybody out here. I'm pretty sure all of you could drink the wine on its own and be very, very happy. But the food experience with Italian wine is seminal to its existence. And, A plus B does equal this greater C. And I think that's, again, the beauty of Italian wine, and specifically with Sangiovese. So yeah, throw it. So we've got the tagliatelle con frutti di mare. Throw it in there, everybody.
I made the aubergine dish, and I think I'm not the only one. I think Mirka's just posted she made the aubergine dish as well. It was very tasty, very nice and easy. And anybody else make the aubergine dish?
Imam Bailey.
I love this. So Faye, I'd love to get your thoughts with the aubergine, because one, when you're in Tuscany, I don't know if any of you have had this experience. A lot of times when you're on vacation, you don't necessarily think about needing to get vegetables. But I filmed a TV show in Tuscany last year, and I was there for almost a month. And there's potatoes were considered a vegetable many dinners, and I think it was great to see aubergine. Can you talk about the dish and talk about its relationship with Sangiovese and what you think about that pairing and how they kind of blend together? Or Faye.
Oh, sorry.
I think that Sebastiano ought to tell us about this, because in fact this is something that's come directly from his niece has been developing these recipes, I believe. So I really enjoyed it. I think it's really nice to have a vegetable dish. You have the texture, the succulency of the aubergine that works really well. And I think it's also essential to be able to have something that's vegetarian and vegan. And so I don't eat red meat. So it's really important to be able to find things that match well with red high acid wines. So I really enjoyed it.
Well, I was telling you before, tomato sauce is the key, in my opinion. So if you have tomato sauce as a base, I think it works very, very well with Sangiovese. And I can what's the word they use for in the what's the tense they use in the when they do an advertisement when there are elections. I verify the statement.
Oh. Oh, right. I approve this statement. Yeah.
Approve the statement. Tomato sauce goes very well with Sangiovese because this octopus ragu my wife made is exceptional and goes really, really well with a Chianti Classico.
No,
So,
I think sticking on tomato sauce, I'll say it in the American vernacular. And I have this question because working in Italian restaurants for a long time, it seems counterintuitive, but you've got tomato, which is high in acidity but also sweet, and then you pair it with a high acid varietal, and yet it's like these two combined equal a much softer experience. Can you speak to that? Because it's really interesting. Like you think more acid would equal greater acid, yet it's the exact opposite.
Exactly, because the highest acidity of tomato sweetens the Sangiovese, because definitely the acidity of tomato is more higher than the Sangiovese is, and so makes the Sangiovese much more sweet, much more how do you say? I know it kind of gives more glycerin. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. It's kind of makes it a kind of the word that the American like uses smooth, so it does make it more smooth. Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times in my experience in the restaurant, and I don't know anyone out there, please comment too. A lot of times when you're first introduced to varietals, specifically red varietals that are high in acid and high in tannin, people kind of you're like, whoa, you pucker your mouth. And then once you get the food in your palate, because I'm seeing, thank you for adding everything in here, everyone. This is awesome. There's a lot of tagliatelle, the octopus ragu. Now, did everybody try the wine first and then try it with the food and kind of see how it really is this most gastronomic chemistry that's absolutely wonderful, and how you can see how that wine just shapes and moves along with these dishes? Another thing that I think with food, and a lot of times this is one issue that Italian wine runs into, is that we pigeonhole it to only go with Italian food. And I think, we've got a global community here. So I'd like to hear from Faye, from Sebastiano, from anybody out there, what other things do you like to, like if you have this wine right now, what else would you have that isn't necessarily Italian? Because a lot of times, I just find, oh, I'm going to make bolognese, so I'm just going to have an Italian wine, right, instead of like, oh, maybe I'm having Shanghai shaking beef noodles. You know what? I'm going to have a Chianti Classico tonight, which I highly recommend doing because it's delicious. Well, we can talk more about, I'm a big fan of Chinese cuisine with Italian food, but Faye or Sebastiano, to kick it off, what are your feelings with other cuisines globally that you would pair with this wine?
Well, the one recipe that was used tonight by Faye is actually not an Italian recipe, because Imam Bailey is more of a Greek-Turkish recipe, and it comes from the fact that my granny was Greek, and she was a professional chef, so that's why we all have all these recipes stemming from that culture. And but yeah, I've done some very nice pairings at a restaurant in China, in Shanghai last November. And I think the main thing is try, get food in front of you, try different food, try with the wine, see what works best. I'm a curious kind of person, so when we talk about Vinsanto, I'll tell you what a very good pairing, which is more difficult to do at home, but if you happen to be in a Japanese restaurant, you might try that. And but in terms of Chianti Classico, I have to tell you, one of the most amazing experience I had in terms of food pairing was actually in New York. I remember Momofuku, person, sommelier, gave me Silvana to be paired with a kimchi, and I thought it was crazy because I don't think there's anything that could be paired with kimchi. And actually, that Silvana being so sweet, it worked so well with kimchi that I was blown away. But as I said, you have to try. You have to try and see if what works, what doesn't work, and drink more. That's
it's a win-win situation. So exactly. Jethro put out something great, and I responded as well. Jethro recommended livers, and I'm curious, Jethro. I had said, I totally love liver with Chianti Classico. maybe it's kind of a pun too from the movie Silence of the Lambs. But it depends whose liver you're talking about. But if you're a fan of Japanese cuisine, yakitori, which is the chicken over the grill, if you do the chicken livers yakitori, and it has this like a kind of sweeter sauce a lot of times they put on it, it works really, really well with Chianti Classico. You paired it with mussels. How did you, with the mussels, what kind of, did you do, what kind of liquid did you steam it in? How did you cook it down? I remember that this is from Mikey Delure.
Oh, mussels,
Moule.
Hi.
I find that very interesting. Hi.
Hi, thanks for the question. Because I like to cook with the season, so I had just bought the mussels. So I did it very Dutch traditional style, actually not using any alcohol in the cooking. And I remembered it very well. Now I did it just at home, but I did it the first time when I cooked the mussels in Zeeland, which is the province where they are grown and harvested. I did actually slow cooking way. Because then when I had it fresh, I didn't have any stove. It was superb. So it's just simple with, a little bit of onion, just water. It takes 5 minutes, and then some other green leafy vegetables to go with it. So
that sounds delicious. And I think, Sebastiano, this I think with like mussels are specifically done in that way. Did you feel there was more salinity, Mikey, in the wine or in the food? Because I could see that where the grapes are grown on the calcareous soil in this very unique place where they're fossils. I remember you showing me, Sebastiano, some fossils in your vineyards. I don't know if I may be just forcing this together, but did you see any of that bringing out more of that kind of saline quality of the wine or the saltiness?
Question for me or for Mike? For me.
For Mikey.
Oh, for Mikey. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think the pairing is great because I thought the Chianti is quite body, full body, which I prefer. And I don't know. I'll think about the sailing question, but
okay. Yeah, well, keep eating and trying it.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely brings me back, let's say, in Zeeland, which I totally would also advertise to the non-Dutch people, but to visit it because it is definitely a great marine province where you get this appetite for. So.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
Over here in Munich, my husband's just had it with some venison pate.
Yeah,
and said it was delicious, especially with a bit of cranberries on top as well. And apparently it worked very well.
Yes, indeed.
But to tell you a story about Hannibal, the sequel of the film was filmed in my house in Florence, where Jeff was wearing the armor. And so Thomas Harris is a good friend of my brother. So my brother asked him about that pairing with liver and Chianti. And Thomas Harris said, well, if you read the book, the pairing is really with Amarone. But in 1991, all the Hollywood majors didn't know what Amarone was. And so they said, no, we'll put Chianti instead. So the original pairing of Chianti, with the liver and fava beans was actually with Amarone. But, we got free publicity so that we can't complain.
Well, I mean, for all the cannibals out there who like fava beans,
exactly,
it's a great pairing.
Exactly. So when they asked us to film the sequel at our palace in Florence, because Hannibal is a curator of a family archive, we had a family meeting, and because my brother said, "Well, I have to ask the family if we can give you, permission to access the palace and to shoot the film," and so then he called him back and said. Family said yes, provided we're not the main course. So thank God when we were not, we're still here to tell the story.
That's funny. Faye, were you about to say something?
I was just saying that whenever somebody talks about Chianti, I think the gif of Hannibal Lecter and the Chianti and the liver is the number one that comes out every time. It's great one.
Every time. I actually get that gif sent to me often when I do my Chianti my Chianti work. So Sebastiano, I'd like to talk. So everybody's had your wine, and we're going to experience more of Chianti Classico as a whole. And you and I've had many drunken conversations about kind of the diversity of it. Mm-hmm. I think it would be great to give everybody, maybe paint that picture of what the diversity of flavor is, and what, you know, if everybody goes out tomorrow after enjoying this wine and they get a different Chianti Classico, you know, how it may be different, even though it's primarily all Sangiovese, just in a broad swath, because so many of us, I think, just think it in this narrow way, and having this bigger understanding of like there's difference and we should experience it and get drunk more.
Well, one thing you have to consider that Chianti Classico is 80% minimum Sangiovese, so you have 20% about red varietals that come into play. So that adds also quite a bit of complexity to the panorama of wines made in Chianti Classico. Not only that, consider that we go from vineyards on elevation of 150 meters, so about 450 feet, to elevation to almost 2,000 feet. So that's another big element that makes a difference on the wines. I would say if you can think about Sangiovese in general, of course you will have a more kind of earthy, you will never get a full fruit kind of wine. It will more, but always be a part of earth in the wine. It's just a question of how the different kind of sweetness that you have in Chianti Classico, because you go from places like Radda, where I would say the acidity is the prominent feature of the wine made in Radda, of the Sangiovese made in Radda, and you go down to all the way to San Casciano, where I would say the fruitiness of the wine is the main character that characterizes Sangiovese. So it's difficult to pinpoint a style in Chianti Classico, as it's difficult to pinpoint a style in Burgundy, but it makes it more beautiful because, you know, it's every winery makes a different Chianti Classico, and it drives me up the wall when I talk to merchants and they say, you know, I have 17 Burgundies, I only have one Chianti. They don't even know what Chianti they have. If they have a Chianti Classico, they have just a straight Chianti, or maybe have the Chianti Rufina or whatever. You know, it drives me up the wall because they're missing out. There is a lot of good wine there. There is because of the fact that there is another appellation that sells, called Chianti, that sells 100 million bottles. Very good wines at very good price. So it's a kind of a paradise for wine lovers and wine collectors, in the sense that, you know, they can still buy at a very cheap price very good wines.
I just 100 want to piggyback on that. If anybody's out there interested in either upping their wine collection or adding to it or even starting one, Chianti Classico, of the world great appellations, is the place where you can still go buy 6 or 12 bottles of wine and still be able to afford your rent. Like if you did that in Burgundy, like, I mean, buying one bottle of Burgundy today is mortgaging my house here in Brooklyn. In the quality level. And the other thing is, like, you know, speaking to this, is the aging of Chianti Classico is amazing. And I believe in drinking wine all the time. I heard some people say they started earlier today and they started yesterday. That's kind of my mantra too. It's, you know, if it's morning, noon, or night, it's good enough to taste some wine. But the beauty of Chianti Classico, and you're trying it today, is you can have a young wine and it be bright and vibrant and pretty. And then if you can still save some money and stash a bottle away and then try it in 2 years, you'll see this little evolution. It's little less fruit forward, a little more earthy. And then you stick it away, forget about it, and then come back to it. It's a whole nother ethereal experience. And you can do that without blowing the bank. And I always call them Tuesday night wines. So when I was young and I started getting the wine business, I was very fortunate to have a friend of mine, a mentor, and he had this very nice cellar. And I'll never forget, he said, "Jeff, go downstairs and pick whatever you want." And I was super nervous. I was 20, 21 years old. and I go in and there's like, you know, all these very fancy bottles of wine that I just read about. And he said, pick whatever. So I grabbed one, and we're having hamburgers with a nice aged bottle of wine on a Tuesday night. And for me, the ability with Chianti Classico is you can buy these wines for yourself, for your children, for your aunts and uncles, whomever, and create a wine collection that's going to be dynamic, unique, and beautiful, and taste great over time, and still have that hamburger because it's delicious. Or you can get a veggie burger because it works well too, because my wife is a vegetarian now. But if you have any questions for Sebastiano, he is arguably one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life. He's a dapper man, and you know, beyond being a great winemaker, he has a rock and roll song named after him. I'm going to call that out. What was I always forget the band.
Dream Theater.
Dream Theater, and the name of the song, it's 14 minutes long. I highly recommend listening to it later tonight after you finish his whole bottle of wine. But Dream Theater, and the song is called what?
The Count of Tuscany.
It is a great song, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. Again, any questions, please throw it out, because Sebastiano can wax on pretty poetically about what's going on. Should we talk now about the Vinsanto, or wait till after the breakout, Faye?
Well, we can either go for a quick breakout now and then come back and talk about the Vinsanto and anything else. I know also we can carry on with the storytelling rather than starting and having to close too early. So there is actually a question in the chat. Right. Now, if we go to Tuscany, what's the best way to visit Sebastiano's vineyard?
Well, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can, the profile, I think it's Sebastiano Capone, like the name that you see on the screen. And you can contact us, and we're open every day. And so if you want to set up a tour of the winery, and you want to do a tasting, you can do that. If you want to have a light lunch, you can do that too. You want to stay with us in one of our rental properties, you can do that too. The website is www.conticaponi.it. So Conti is spelled CONTICAPONI.it. I will write it on the chat anyhow. And so that's probably the best way to go. We'll be actually putting on Facebook some of the recipes that we've given you tonight. There'll be my niece, the professional chef. She did a 1-minute video of how the recipe were prepared, and we're going to put it on Facebook in the next few weeks. So you can, if you follow us on Facebook and Instagram, you'll be able to see it, to see the 1-minute Facebook. Okay, there's another question here. What's your opinion of the future of wine industry in coronavirus time? Oh, that's a big one. Let me.
Depends what country you're in.
Exactly. Everyone, I'll put the website www. Excuse me 1 second.
Conticaponi.it. I put in already.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, Repetita Juvent. So what is the future? Well, I worked mostly with restaurants, so I was hurt quite a bit by this coronavirus and the virus, and because I don't deal with the GDO, I don't deal with the supermarkets. I deal mostly with restaurants and independent retailers. I can tell you, in Italy, situation is not that bad. I mean, restaurants are reopened. Of course, the question is that restaurants that worked with Italians are faring better than the ones that were working just with tourists. And so I think that made understand restaurateurs that they cannot cater only to tourism, because, something like this happened. They need to cater also to their own, to the nationals, to the people who live here all year long. And there'll be a natural selection, of course, even in Florence. Some restaurants are not going to reopen. Thank you very much. I think in terms of Florence, And in terms of Tuscany in general, the crisis, once the people will be able to travel, I think we're going to be back to the usual, I would say, rumba over here, because we have a lot of people coming over here. I don't think that's going to change. But that's, my unprofessional opinion. So we need just to hang in there, as they say. We're hanging in there. We'll make it.
It's a very dynamic situation. What is that kind of for a lot of your peers in Chianti Classico? Is that pretty much the same situation with the level of producer that you are, like working with the specific type of restaurants and retailers? Everyone's kind of
yeah. I mean,
holding in there.
The appellation is doing well in the sense that the appellation is only. We were looking at statistics the other day. It was only 10% less than last year, which is unexpected. But there is a lot of Chianti Classico wine going to Costco and big Total Wines, big stores. There's a lot of Chianti Classico being sold there. So you might see might happen. You might see some Chianti Classico bottled by bottlers that might reach Costco and at a very competitive price. Let's put it this way. And but you can't help it. I mean, it's of course it's people don't have the space to store the wine for 3 years, and they have to sell, and they have to sell at a low price. The price is still holding, but they probably took like 35% loss from last year. So
wow.
Now it's a time where bottlers can make money.
Could you to kind of shift gears and maybe to a historic and happier note? When did your family first bottle under Villa Calcinai? Because you've had the land for a long time, but when did the first vintage with the label come out?
Oh, the black and white label. The black and white label was created by my mother in 1962. The bottles were made before, but they were with a different label. But they were kind of the reserved, what we call the reserved wine. That's why the term reserva comes from. So there were a few bottles made hand bottled. There was no machine bottling, and that was used mostly for events in like weddings, like anniversaries, like big celebration. So it was the real proprietary reserve. So Calcinaia started bottling in earnest in the late 50s, early 60s, because at that time we start seeing the exodus from the countryside to the cities, and basically the abandonment of all the cottages, of all the houses that were in Chianti. It's interesting. There was actually what to call it, convention made by all the famous important professors of agriculture, all the agronomists of Italy in Rada, to talk about the phenomenon of the end of the sharecropping system and what was the future of Chianti back in the 50s. And they established the future of Chianti was shepherding. You see how accurate. And it's always like this. When you put intellectuals together, you absolutely 90% sure, and I come from family intellectuals, they never get it right. When they start thinking about what's going to happen in the future, never get it right. And
so just to confirm, because making sure everybody here. So in the 50s, after the fall of the Mezzadria,
mm-hmm.
the consensus was that the economy of the region would be shepherding goats or sheep?
Sheep, goats. Yeah, because we are very hilly and we are very rocky. And so they said, it's an ideal area for sheep and goats, which we have still. We have sheep and goats. I mean, in my estate, we have goats. We have about 70, 80 goats, but it's not the only thing. I mean, it's very nice to make goat cheese, but it's not the only production we make.
They nailed it with their prediction.
Inhaled it, yes. Oh yeah, especially when you have this convention of economists and they predict what the future is going to be, they never get it right. Never get it right. So the organic. There was a question on organic.
Yeah. So this is a great question, and we were going to talk about this. What does organic mean for your wine, and what does it mean for you as a producer? Do you believe it is better, or it is done because customers expect it?
That's a good question. I will reply in a very cynical way, which was the way that a distributor in Washington State kind of explained why he liked the fact that I was becoming organic. You see, in conventional agriculture, you work on a calendar. In organic agriculture, you worked based on the weather pattern, meaning that you have to be in the vineyards more, because if the weather changes, you have to adapt to what the weather is doing. Whereas in the conventional agriculture, you have a calendar, you follow the calendar, no matter what, basically. And so he said very cynically to me, he said, I appreciate the fact you're becoming organic because it means you'll be spending more time in a vineyard, and that means that probably you're going to make a better wine. I said, I appreciate that you like that the effort I make remains very appreciated, and I'm very happy with it because of that. But, and also the fact that I live in Calcinaia, especially, I commute every day from Florence, but, in the summer, that's our summer place. So, if we're dealing with less impact on the nature, it's always a good thing. And I also think that an importance of having animals like the goats and plants like vines and olive trees are so not having just a mono production of one thing, but have multiple production. It is also very important for biodiversity and also for the outcome of the different products. We are planting. I'm a mad person. I'm planting actually 1,000 plants of olives right now. Well, I'll start next week. So
1,000.
1,000 plants, yes. I know I'm mad, but I believe that olive oil, it's the next frontier. I believe that people will slowly, hopefully, but surely recognize that good olive oil, is very important for your cuisine and also for your health. And I know there are Germans in the room. I always tell, because Germans like their cars, they love their cars, and a German friend of mine says, people are willing to spend $60 to put a liter of oil in their car, but they're not willing to spend $20 to put a liter of oil in their system. So that's what people should think about. It's olive oil, good olive oil makes a whole difference, especially when you're cooking. And a bad olive oil can ruin a dish. So I think that the beauty of Chianti, of the region of Chianti, is also this, that we're not dominated by viticulture. Viticulture, it's a part of Chianti. Tonight we're talking about wine, of course, and the main protagonist, the main character is the wine. I'm German, I have no car.
More olive oil for you.
More olive oil for you then. And so I think the beauty of Chianti is that you have an alternance of the landscape between woodlands, olive groves, vineyards, plains. People are planting wheat and making bread. That's what really makes our land beautiful, and that what really makes our products even better.
Sebastiano, you had mentioned this key word that I like to talk about is biodiversity, and a lot of people, if you look at very classic wine regions, Bordeaux, Champagne, Burgundy, even in the Langhe in Barolo, they're monocultures. And the challenge, and obviously all those places make great wine, but the issue with a monoculture is it kills off other parts of the whole system that make the ecosystem function better. And specifically with climate change, here and now, having biodiversity really can help in certain regards. So Sebastiano, can you speak to the fact that Chianti Classico as an appellation has a very high percentage of producers who are certified organic, biodynamic, and or maybe they're a small producer, they don't do the certification, but you talk to so many producers, they farm they farm in this righteous manner, and a lot of them credit the biodiversity and the fact that there's more woods than there are vineyards.
Yeah. Well, the township of Greve has reached more than 30% of organic producers. So that makes kind of, I think, the highest concentration of organic farming in the whole of Europe, well, in the whole world, I think. And so I think that it's definitely a plus. I'm curious who picks the grapes. Okay, we'll answer that in a minute. And so what I was going to say is that we have more and more people, even big wineries, changing the farming to organic, and I think that the Greve aims at becoming the first township fully organically with 100% of organic land, and other township as well, like Rada and places and other smaller township like Barberino and Tavernelle, and aiming at the same thing. So I think that's a virtuous movement, and we have a biodistretto biodistrict in Chianti that promotes organic gardening, agriculture, not viticulture, agriculture in general. I have to say this, that it's, when you're south of the Pennines, it's easier to be organic than when you're north of the Pennines, because the weather is more Mediterranean, and so it's easier for us to cultivate. But it's the fact that people are changing their views. It's also a question of change of mentality. I mean, we need to the new generation coming up, the new winemakers coming up, and running the estate are definitely more interested in on the subject, and definitely are changing the wineries from conventional to organic. So I hope that I think it's going to grow and grow and grow. And to tell you, to answer your question about Chianti and the comparison to Burgundy and to Barolo, I think that if you consider that the acreage of Chianti is 140,000 acres and only 15% is occupied by vineyards, you understand what I meant, what I said before. I mean, the beauty of change, the beauty of not having just monoculture. Thank you very much.
Faye, would you like to, we can pick up the next question after the break? Should we go to breakout or which? Okay.
Yeah, it's already 9:15. So I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. I've allocated you with some people that I hope you will know. If you don't know anybody, it's your first time, you'll probably find yourself in a room with somebody in the same sort of country. Yeah, so I'll just open them for 10 minutes. I would say take the time either to have a chat or to stretch your legs and crack open also the Vinsanto, which is what I'm going to do now. And then when we come back, we'll talk about the Vinsanto and the history behind Vinsanto and everything. So we're going to have quite a bit to talk about after then. So I'll open the rooms, and all you have to do is, I think very often, accept to go in the breakout room, and you're off. There we go.
I'm in the breakout room.
Now I've not put you two in a breakout room, but do you want to go in a breakout room? Do you want to go and say hello?
As you wish. I mean,
yeah, sure. I just need to go to the restroom real quick.
I need.
Okay, I'm going to put.
Be happy to if you want.
I'll put you, Sebastiano. I will put you in Munich. Actually,
Munich.
Breakout room 1. Yes, there you go. And then I'll put.
Can I be in a European place too?
Yeah, I'm going to put you in Belgium and the Netherlands.
Oh. Yeah. Is it going okay? Am I doing okay? Hello? Oh. Are you there, Faye? Can you hear me?
Welcome back, everybody. I think just about everybody's back. We've got Jeff back. Sebastiano. Why don't I see Sebastiano? We've got the we're on the Vinsanto at the moment with the gorgonzola tart, and it works really nicely. I was just saying that we actually had a bottle of Vinsanto this week with some dried fruit and nuts and a bit of chocolate at night, just in front of the telly. It was delicious. But this savoury with the Vinsanto works really nicely with the sweetness of the gorgonzola. So
yeah, I always like to go by contrast with Vinsanto. So something savory with something sweet. Yeah, always like that.
Really nice, really nice. Are we good to go, Jeff?
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Hello, and I'm back. Okay, so Vinsanto time. We'll just look at this picture real quick. This very handsome devil right here. He's not doing Tai Chi. He was explaining something, but it does look like you're doing some Tai Chi. I like that picture a lot. So Vinsanto is, you know, the famous dessert wines in the world, or as I like to say, it doesn't have to be a dessert wine. A better word for it, and we can all practice this, is vini meditazione, right? Is that a wine of meditation is what I like to call that. In this picture right in the middle, this was actually taken in the Vinsanto drying room.
The passitoio.
The passitoio. And it was a beautiful, beautiful sight. And Vinsanto is probably one of the most special wines, I think, on the planet. And I think it's oft misunderstood. And I like what you said, Sebastiano, that, you know, it's not just about sweet, it's sweet and savory at the same time, and experiencing that together, that duality, I think, is what makes it unique. And I will take a great Vinsanto over Sauterne any day of the week. For me, I love Vinsanto, I love Madeira. And I do, for my German friends out there, I love a really good Trockenbeer and Auslese. But when it comes to I think a wine that really can strike a chord, Vinsanto is extremely special. It's painstaking to make. It's a time capsule, because it's like Madeira, can age forever. And I like to say, this is one of my wine terms, there's a deliciousness quotient that is off the charts. If you were to graph how delicious it is, it would destroy the graph, and that's how good it is. And Sebastiano's Vinsanto is arguably, and this is not just because he's here, and it's not just because you are here, but some of the world's greatest restaurants have been pouring it by the glass, namely Noma was pouring it by the glass for a long time. And that should tell you something, because they actually have one of the strictest policies on how to get a wine into that restaurant. And the qualitative nature of what they do just, I think, shows the qualitative nature of what Sebastiano does. So with that, I want you to take it away and describe specifically your Vinsanto and how you make it, because everyone right now is so lucky, because I think it's like 800 bottles are made.
Well, I will start the conversation of Vinsanto with my best rendition of Orson Welles by saying, there's no Cantucci for this wine. That means that, unfortunately, we have a tradition in Tuscany, which is to dunk biscuits in the Vinsanto. Now, Vinsanto can be made very cheaply. You just buy concentrated sugar and alcohol, you mix it together, and then you have this wine that is unfortunately very used to carry the name Vinsanto, called Vinsanto il Nonno, grandfather's Vinsanto, which was sold, I think, for 3-4 euros on the shelf for a full bottle, which gave them, unfortunately, this bad rap and this kind of a habit of Dunkin' biscuits in this wine. Now, there's a different way of making Vinsanto, painstakingly long. In this case, before we bottle this wine, 9 years have to go by, sometimes 10 years. So you're tasting right now 2010 Vinsanto. And there are two Vinsanto made in Chianti Classico. There's a Vinsanto del Chianti Classico and Vinsanto del Chianti Classico Occhio di Pernice. The Occhio di Pernice is with a base of Sangiovese, which we have increased with the new modification of bylaws, which are about to be approved to 70% of Sangiovese, which has a much darker color than this one here. And there's a Vinsanto del Chianti Classico, which instead has to be with the new bylaws 70% of Trebbiano and Malvasia, either singly or combined, and 30% of other white or red varietals of the area. The Trebbiano is the backbone for my Vinsanto, and it's a great varietal called that the French call Uni Blanc. And it's what gives the backbone of acidity to the wine, because Trebbiano, aka Uni Blanc, makes great Asian wine. It's not so good when it's young, but you know, and Jeff has had some wonderful white Trebbianos in Italy, in Abruzzi, and when they age and they're well done and they're aged well, I mean, they're beautiful wines. Or you can use it as you know, in cognac to make a spirit, or you can use it in Chianti Classico to make, as I say, wine for meditation. And the 15% of Malvasia Bianca gives a kind of a touch of femininity to the wine, because Malvasia Bianca is much more feminine grape than Trebbiano is. And Canaiolo gives glycerin, gives fat. Because as I explained before, Canaiolo doesn't have very much high acidity, it's low in acidity, but it has a great capacity of accumulating the sugar. So it gives a lot of fat to the wine. The problem with Canaiolo that you must be it's like salt and pepper. You must not add too much, because if you add too much Canaiolo, then it tends to kind of make the wine more difficult to drink. It loses its appeal of the second glass. And the important thing for me when I drink is always to have the appeal of the second glass. It's like with beer. If I finish a pint, I want to order another pint. If I have trouble finishing the first pint, then there's something wrong with the beer.
What why you know the drying process, and can you give us, actually let's go back. There are lots of different stories about Vinsanto and its existence. Can you give us your favorite version?
I'll give you two versions. I'll give you probably the most probable version, which is the more boring one, which is Vinsanto. It's called holy wine because it was used in church for the Eucharisty. And the reason why it was used in church, because the priest did not have to worry about the wine going bad, because it's wine obtained by process of oxidation, like sherry, like Madeira. So the wine could be left, the bottle wine could be left half empty in the back, in the sacristy for weeks, and the wine would never go bad. So you can use a little bit at a time, unless he was an Irish priest, which would be a completely different matter. And no, without worrying about the wine going bad. The second explanation, which is more kind of fanciful and, if you wish, more historical, because it's linked to an episode that happened during the Council of Florence between Eastern and Western churches. It was the last council before the schism between the Orthodox and the Catholics. And it was held in Florence between 1430 and 1439. And in one of the dinners where the bishops were, there was offered Vinsanto. And the Bishop of Nicea, Bessarione, tasted the wine and said, this is the wine we're making Santos in Greece. And Florentines not understanding what he was talking about, he said, he thinks the wine is holy, so they call it Vinsanto. So those are the two explanations for the name of the wine. And the Vinsanto has always been the welcoming wine for people. If you go to somebody's house, you would offer a glass of Vinsanto, like the English would offer you a glass of sherry or a glass of Madeira. The Italians or Tuscans will offer a glass of Vinsanto, which will be dry, usually for the men, and it will be sweeter for the women. In my family, we have a British kind of upbringing. My father wanted his Vinsanto very dry, like his mother, like my granny liked, because it would put in the broth. If you have a meat broth, you put some Vinsanto in to cut through the fat. And but in that case, you need a dry Vinsanto to do that. So we'll always make a special batch for my father of dry Vinsanto, and the rest of the world gets the ladies Vinsanto, so the sweet version of it.
It's amazing. How many total bottles do you make in an average year of this Vinsanto?
Between 800 and 1,200 half bottles.
Wow. So think about how many people are here and the percentage of Vinsanto that's being consumed.
Yeah.
That blows my, for the entire world, 800
Exactly.
to 1,200
That's a
bottles.
big depletion tonight of Vinsanto.
So
Well,
just real quick. Oh, go ahead.
15% of yield. Consider 15% of yield. So you start with, to make a full bottle, you need 4 kilos. Is that correct? Yeah, 4 kilos from something.
Wow. And what's the residual sugar of this?
This is 2010. So this is the 220.
And so 220 grams per liter is significant, but again, the acidity in the wine is what's the pH?
pH
That's super
would be
geeky.
3.5. 3.5.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah. I'm going to share my screen real quick because I want to show some other pictures.
Can I just ask, in the chat, a couple of people that were thinking that they weren't going to open this, but seeing as we're talking about it so much, people are asking how long, when it's been open, how long could they keep it open for?
Okay, I will quote my distributor in Chicago. She always says that the ability of this wine to age is not dependent on its intrinsic quality, but it's dependent on your willpower. So if you have enough willpower, you can age a long time. If you don't have enough willpower, it will last not very long. It will not last very long.
But if they put the cork back in and stick it in the fridge, it will be good for tomorrow.
Next year, 2 years from now.
Wow. Okay.
We went out once with my distributor in Chicago. She had some bottles left over from my previous trips. So we went out one day and we were showing Vinsanto of 3 different vintages that she has kind of kept in the fridge for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. It was still delicious.
Wow.
Because oxygen is not an issue for him anymore. Your friend Stefan Metzner once told me, all the harm you could have done to the wine already been done in the wine making process, so you cannot harm it anymore. So that explains why Vinsanto is unbreakable. This is a plant of Malvasia Bianca.
Right.
No, this looks, no.
Oh, the Malvasia, I think, was the other picture.
Yeah, this is Trebbiano. No, this is Trebbiano. This is Trebbiano because it's pink. Trebbiano Rosa. And Malvasia, it's the more greeny one. Green. Yeah, that's Malvasia.
So this is, again, the drying process. And how long, on average, do you dry these grapes like this?
Between 4 and 6 months, depending on the year, depending how much wind I get. On a technical base, I usually press the grapes when they reach about between 300 and 350 grams of sugar.
So the one picture I was really excited to show everybody is this picture. Can you explain about this type of barrel and why there's concrete on top?
So primary fermentation does not happen in an open vat. It happens in a closed vat. And you must remember 2 things if you do this kind of operations. Not to fill the barrel completely. So again, that's why there's a lot of oxygen contact, because the barrel is not full. And you must cement the top, because primary fermentation will start within the barrel and it can go up to 16, 17 atmosphere pressure. So if you don't leave enough room for the liquid to expand, it will either crack the wood or it will pop the cork. And that's why you cement the cork, the bunghole. And then, what happens is that yeast will start eating the sugars, and they will usually eat 160 grams of those sugars, maybe If they're very strong, they can go up to 200 grams. And then there'll still be sugars to be eaten, but they cannot eat anymore. They will go dormant. It's like when you go to somebody's party and, you know, a wedding party, and you have the first course, second course, third course, fourth course, you're done. You know, if there's more food, you go back to a lounge chair as you go to sleep. So same thing happens to these.
And then I think another thing why, you know, for everybody to think about in terms, so they pick the grapes, they dry, so you lose volume there.
Yep.
Then they put them in these small little barrels, and the barrels are called cavatelli. If I'm not mistaken. Caratelli. And are the ones that you use made from the traditional chestnut, or Tuscan oak, or those?
Slavonian oak, and a few barrels of French, but very few, mostly Slavonian.
So they're very small barrels. How many liters?
Between 40 and 55.
And then you never top them off.
No. Well, no, you do. You do.
Oh, a little bit.
Once fermentation is finished, so you're sure that you're not going to be any more pressure, you can top them up. Especially if the volatile acidity is kind of, you know, around 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, you want to top them up.
And it's just, it's unbelievable. I'm still on the Chianti bottle, pairing it now with dried physalis fruit that is high in acidity. Wow, that's you.
What's a physalis fruit? Sorry.
I'm not sure. What is a physalis fruit? Can you show us?
Those orange things with the dried, what do you call them?
What is it?
Yeah. In French, they're called physalis. Or as well, they're small orange.
Okay.
With some dried leaves around the edge.
And the leaves are.
But they're about this side, like really marble side.
That sounds delicious.
You always get on the side of desserts in Italy. They're physalis.
What I mean, top it up. Top it up. I mean, I fill to the brim. I fill the barrel to the brim. That's what I mean by top it up. So there's no more oxygen. Oh, yeah. There's no more oxygen.
Wine will evaporate in the barrel. So when you're in the winemaking process, over time, just like if in any liquid will slowly evaporate, and so you add more wine to make sure it's like Sebastiano said, to the brim, so it doesn't oxidize more, and wine can oxidize, and that can make it not as good. It's interesting though, depends on the wine, because some people, like if you're making wine in this area in the Jura, you're making Savagnin or in sherry, they don't top it off, but this bacteria lays on top of it. And that's a whole nother fun wine conversation we can have.
Yeah.
Because those wines are super interesting and cool. But I want to go back to a question that we had earlier today about kind of the labor behind the Sebastiano. So in your vineyards, and it's different throughout all of Italy, and who is picking the grapes right now in Tuscany?
Well, we have when harvest comes, all hands on deck. So we have two masons working in the winery on a regular basis, and when we start picking, they go and pick. My son was picking this year and last year, and so we have a team about 12, 13 people that we will pick everything by hand. In years where we have more grapes, like last year, we'll hire another squad to pick the grapes. So we'll do the kind of the more difficult blocks, in the sense that where there's more a mixture, like the old vines, where there's a mixture of old vines and great and young vines. So we pick those separately, and we'll use a squad for the easier blocks, I would say. And for the time being, we only hand pick. We never use machine picking. Although I must say that I heard some neighbors of mine that the new machines, like the new Peleg, the new Broad, are becoming very, very good for picking. So, you know, I'm always open to suggestions. So I'm not stuck in the. Although I come from the Middle Ages, I'm not stuck in there.
You know, and I think how long, so with that group on an average harvest, how long does it take to pick your estate?
15 working days. roughly 15 working days.
And how are you finished for this year, or are you still some?
I'm pretty much done. Yes, I have a little strip of Montepulciano d'Abruzzo that I have to pick, which was, and then I have a vineyard of Chenin Blanc, but my vineyard of Chenin Blanc is at 2,000 feet above sea level, so will be a while before I pick that.
Ah, that's amazing. And what do you do with your Montepulciano and with the Chenin?
Well, I vinify Montepulciano on its own, and most of the time it's blended in a Chianti Classico Annata. Sometimes I get surprises, and I add it to the Reserva. When it's blended in the Annata, it's less than 1%. So I'm not that specific. So if it's below 5, I don't put it on the label.
Right.
Although I know I knew a German producer who puts also 0. Like 45% of a specific rate that he's put in, but I try not to be that specific. And when it is in the Reserva, if it's above 5%, I will mention it. I think the last time we have put it in the Reserva was in 2013. And of course, it drives your category up the wall, because they have to change the wine list, because it's always 100% Sangiovese. Then that year, changes everything, and they have to change and add this varietal. But the Montepulciano was planted originally in '67, and by mistake, because it was not meant to be Sangiovese, but we had a flood in Florence in 1966, and the flood hit all the nurseries near the town of Pisa, and all the name tags were washed away. So in the springtime, we were sold the wrong varietals. And instead of my father planted 7 hectares in '67, instead of planting Sangiovese, Canaiolo, Trebbiano, Malvasia, he planted Gewürztraminer, Grechetto, Vernaccia, Montepulciano Abruzzo, Teroldego, Ancellotta, and Merlot. So it was a kind of a big surprise. Yeah.
That's funny. And you usually can't find that out until a few years after they've grown up a little bit.
Once the leaves come out, you realize they're not what they were meant to be, but the plants are in the ground, so nothing much to do about it.
So we have a bunch of questions here, Sebastiano, so this is great, and I want to add to it as well. So from Laura, what do you consider your personal best vintage in the last 20 years?
Okay, since I started working at Wine Calcinai in 1992, I would say I would pick one per decade. I would say in the 90s, I would pick 1999. In the 2000, I would pick 2006. In the 2010s, I would pick 2010. Yeah, and 2016.
Yeah,
very close to 2010. Yeah,
we'll stay on a vintage before I ask the next question. So talk to us. 2020 has been a unique year, to say the least. How was the Annata itself?
Oh, it was very much vintage. Like 17 and 12, so kind of a little bit early picking, because we've had a very dry and hot summer. With the difference, like if you compare it with 2003, which was very hot and dry, we had the benefit of 2 days of rain at the beginning of September, which kind of saved the harvest, because if we didn't get that rain, we would have been really hard for the grapes. So it's a little earlier than usual, about 7 to 10 days earlier. I have I think that the wines, I mean, what I'm tasting in the cellar, the wines are good. I mean, I would compare it to a 2012. I think that's the closest thing that I can think of. So wines that are, the good thing about it is that they're not overripe, which is very important. And they are quite, I would say, more on the elegant side than power, I would say, which is very much a characteristic of my area, but even more so this year. So the good thing about it, even was very, very hot and dry, we didn't have any sour maturation, which was could have been the case if it didn't rain at the beginning of September. So I think it's a very good year. I think it's a very good year. Less, I would say, yeah, I think 12 is probably the closest. And 17 is similar as well. Yeah, with a little more production in 17, because 17 was very low production.
We have a nice comment. This is from our Canadian friend watching. You know, I love the Vinsanto. It has hints of maple syrup. I'm so Canadian.
I agree. It has hints of maple syrup. Yes.
So this is this is an important question from Lynn. Is climate change affecting your grape production? And I'm going to add on to that. And if you could just keep going, is how is it affecting, and what are you doing to adapt to it?
Well, one thing that the Valley of Greve and another township, the township of Rada, has benefited from this increase of 2-3 degrees in the Chianti area, because we are Valley of Greve, because of the humidity of the river, and Rada because of the altitude, had trouble in the 80s and 70s to get a full ripeness of the Sangiovese. So we definitely have benefit from the change. Now it's enough, no more. We need to stop here. How we are adapting? We are adapting in a way that we try not to, for example, de-leaf too much in the summertime. We try to do this operation very much close to the harvest. And when you're planting a new vineyard, you now prefer to plant in the more cooler exposures like eastern, sometimes north and eastern exposure, where before you were looking at south. I don't have much in terms of western exposure, but I know people that have a western exposure have problems. So south and southwestern exposure are more difficult now, unless you are high up on the mountain. And eastern and northeastern exposure are preferred now, right now, for Sangiovese. But
what? Right, yeah. I like how you said stop. This is we're at a good temperature.
Yeah,
it's a-okay for. Are you seeing with that, because you are in a unique position? I'd say also L'Amelais is also in a unique position at altitude and with Rada. Are there areas within Chianti Classico that it is having a slight negative effect because maybe they're not as high in altitude, or they're
yeah, it's probably the more difficult, the one that the southern exposures with maybe lower altitude are the ones that are having more difficulties. So and maybe with the more clay soil because of drought. So one place that comes to mind would be the slower part of Castellina, where you go towards Castellina Scalo. That might have some more difficulties right now because of the fact that they're very rich soils, but when clay lacks water, it's very hard for the plant to develop the fruit.
Right. So I just on a technical note, you talked about de-leafing, and for those that don't know, it's exactly what it sounds like. You have this canopy of leaves, and a lot of times, specifically in warmer vintage, and if you're on the west side where you get a lot of sun, you'll actually want to keep the leaves over the grapes, because the grapes can get sunburned just like you or I. So there's not like a great suntan lotion to put on your grapes to protect it from UV rays, and the molecules inside the grapes can actually start to change. They'll technically cook, and it changes the flavor profile. So what Sebastiano was saying is they don't pick the leaves off as early as they used to, because they basically want an umbrella over the grapes, and then right before harvest you'll go through, de-leaf a little bit depending on where your vineyard is, and allow that last bit of radiation to come, not like Chernobyl radiation, but just radiation from the sun to come. And it's that last, it's just like cooking, it's that last hit of one thing that changes in the flavor of the grape, and it's helpful. But it's really interesting. I'm seeing this globally. Of all the places I travel to and I talk to, is canopy management has been one of the number one, and that canopy management is this change of what you do with the leaves around the grapes is kind of one of the biggest dialogues people are having right now with climate change around the world from every country I've been to.
In Tuscany, we have a saying. We say that in August, the grapes need to disappear.
Yeah.
I think that sums it up.
Right, exactly. Are there any other questions before I ask Sebastiano some personal questions in front of everyone? So, you know, you're a wine lover, a history lover. You've taught me so much. I always like to know what winemakers like to drink besides their own wine, because I think you can give kind of some context about what you're drinking outside of Chianti Classico to you know, maybe what inspires you from the rest of the wine world.
Sky's the limit. I don't buy. Okay, I tell you this. I have difficulties in buying wines from winemakers who don't drink, unless it's for for health reasons. And I have difficult buying from winemakers who drink only their own wine. I love wine, and I drink a lot of different wines. I have a very soft spot for German Riesling. I know there are a lot of Germans tonight, so that is my, that's probably my on the white wine world. That's probably my favorite place. And when it comes to, I like wines that have a high acid, so that's usually what I go to. Although, I must say that wines, I had some very great bottles of Grenache when it has some age to it. So I also drink wines with age. I don't like drinking much young wines. I prefer to keep it in my cellar and drink it when I feel ready to be drank. So during the quarantine, I think I have, I've gone through quite a bit of my 90s and my early 2000s. And I tell you the story. There was a birthday dinner for my son, my eldest son, and we opened a bottle of 1999 Bartolo Mascarello in the Magnum. And there was a friend of my son who was a teetotaler. He doesn't drink wine. So I gave him a glass. He drank the wine and said, "Is this how red wine should taste like?" And I said, "Yes, this is how red wine should taste like. Can I have another glass?" So, even a teetotaler, if it's put in front of a good glass of wine, I'm sure we can convert a lot of teetotalers to our creed.
It is true. One of my favorite things is when people challenge me with being like, I don't like white wine, or I don't like X varietal, and I'm all like, I will find the wine for you. It's anytime anyone says they don't like something, I'm like, the world of wine is so vast. There's 100% chance that I'll find a wine that you like. And I'm very proud. Last night I got blind tasted. I nailed vintage region grape. It was Riesling Nahe 2016.
Wow.
And it was a good party trick. I was very, very happy. And I too love Riesling. So we have a question here from Jethro. Do you have, and this is a very, very hard one. What is your favorite bottle that you've ever tried?
No, there's several. There's several bottles that left a lasting impression on me. The first one, it probably was a Lenspage. I think we were in Bordeaux with my wife, and I was buying. I was dealing with a pépiniériste, a nursery there to propagate the Merlot that I found in my estate. So that was basically in late 90s, and I think it was Lenspage. It was 89 Lenspage. I think that was my first wine that really gave me a lasting impression. And if it comes to Chianti Classico, there are several, but one that gave me a really lasting impression, I believe it was a 75 from Castellinvilla. I think it was, and maybe a Villa Rosa. It was also Villa Rosa 69, which was quite incredible. Yeah, quite incredible. So
wow.
But there are several. And it's like when you go to restaurants, when you go, to go to all this restaurant like the star, the Michelin star restaurants. There are very few that give me a very lasting impression of what I ate. So if I remember the dish, then it's. If I only remember that I ate well, but I don't remember exactly the dish, then it was good, but it was not. It was not an everlasting experience.
And so, Julita asked me the same question. I very, very challenging, but I can give you the aha wine, the wine that I decided that I wanted to change my career path and focus on wine. It was a 1977 Mastro Berardino Tarazi. That wine is the reason I'm in front of you today. Without that wine, I don't know if I would have gotten here. It was life-changing, life-affirming. It was lightning in a bottle, and I'm very, very lucky to have found that.
And if I might add up, one of the most underrated wine in Italy, because you still can buy it for 20-25 euro a bottle.
Mm-hmm. Which is I'm a huge fan of Mastro Berardino. And the second part of the question is, what is my main inspiration apart from Chianti? So my other favorite love in Italy is Nebbiolo. I love Piedmont. I've spent equally the amount of time. It's Chianti and Chianti Classico and the Long Air, like my two children. I love them equally, but for different reasons. Although I have to say, I've probably had more fun in Chianti Classico than I have in the Long A, because I can talk. Sebastiano is one of the most fun people I've ever been around, and he's a big reason for my love of Chianti Classico. But Nebbiolo is a very special varietal, and it has a lot of, it's a kindred spirit to Sangiovese, and I think that's one reason I like it so much.
Yeah, I agree.
And are there any other questions? We have the man, the myth, the legend. All of you who live in Europe are extremely lucky. Go visit Sebastiano. It is a place that is unique. Villa Calcinaia is a beautiful estate with beautiful wines, beautiful people, and one Vinsanto recipe. Going back to liver, making it full circle. It was a lunch we had in 2017 at with the Montefiorali Association. And they took a pig's liver, and I know this sounds crazy, but go with me. It was delicious. Pig's liver, marinated in Vinsanto, wrapped in pancetta, and then arrosticini on rotisserie. And then they sliced it, and you just kind of smeared it on bread. Oh my God. And then we had it with Vinsanto. It was, it gets you hot and bothered, as they'd say in the South.
There was a question on South Tyrol wines. Was it? Is it to me only?
It must be to you.
To you, okay. So the question: what do you think? What I think of wines from South Tyrol? I think they're very good. The question, my answer always is when I ask me, what kind of wines you like. I like good wines. I think you can find good wines everywhere. I think South Tyrol makes great wines, and I think they're very good at selling them. I think the marketing of South Tyrol is to be admired, because they were able to market as a region, the whole region. And I think the white wines from Friuli are as good as the one of South Tyrol, but South Tyrol can sell the wines in a much better way than the Friulani will do. And
that is 100% true.
And I'm more a fan of the Pinot Bianco and of the few Rieslings that are up there. I'm not a big fan of Gewürztraminer in general. The only one I found that was really, really good was from a producer, quite good producer from Alsace called Zin Umbrecht. He makes a pretty darn good Gewürztraminer. It's probably the only one that I really, really care for. But I think that South Tyrol makes great wines, and I think they're very good at selling them.
Awesome. I totally agree. And if please let us know there's any other questions. I know we're coming to the end of our time. I know it's 10:15 ish in the continent here here on the East Coast. It's what is it, 4 p.m. I have a party to go to soon in my house. I've got some more wine to drink tonight. Personal opinions on Chardonnay, ABC. I love Chardonnay. I think Chardonnay's great. White Burgundy's one of my favorite places on earth. I think I think I was saying it earlier. I'm not against any wine or any place. Just like Sebastiano said, every place on earth, if it's good, there's someone making good wine in a wine region on the planet, bar none. Maybe not Thailand, but if someone put a glass, there are vineyards in Thailand. They get 3 harvests a year. And I went to a vineyard in Costa Rica, and the wine was horrible, but they have promise. But yeah, I love Chardonnay. I had 3 of them last night. My head hurts today, but I'm feeling much better. And then we've got, I like this. Did you see this, Sebastiano? Never Sauterne again. Suck it, French. I have one final question for the group. Do any of you have a different opinion of Chianti Classico 2.5 hours after you started tonight, or do you have a desire to explore more? I'm very curious. I always like to know. You probably liked it before because that's why you're here, but do you have a wanting to explore more or a better understanding of the diversity? Throw it up there.
Let's hope so, because we have another 2 evenings.
Desire to explore more. Awesome. Always loved it. That's great. It's and for everybody out there, keep professing the love of Chianti Classico, because it is a very, very special place. And demand, when you go into the wine shops, demand that they carry, just like they carry a lot of Burgundy or Bordeaux, be like, listen, there's diversity in Chianti Classico. You should have more than just 1 or 2. No opinion before, but definitely a new fan created. That's great. Explore it further. Good. Next week is going to be really great. Next week is La Micine. This is I think it's in 2 weeks.
2 weeks time.
Right? 2 weeks time. So in 2 weeks, La Micine, which is a great contrast to Sebastiano's family story, because his family's been there 1,000 years. And then Paula is Canadian. And she'll tell her story, but she's been there for about a decade, and she has Italian roots. But it's a beautiful story, and I think everybody's going to be really excited. And that's the beauty, Chianti Classico. The other thing we haven't talked about is, unlike other parts in the world, the region of Chianti Classico I've seen has been so open to other people coming, as long as they accepted, as long as they didn't emote their personal opinion on X, Y, and Z. If you come in and you accept the traditions and you learn from the people, the foundation of Chianti Classico supports you so well. And that's what I've loved seeing with producers. Like Paula said, it was not easy, but like, because she worked hard and she wanted to prove that she could make great Chianti Classico, the legions like Sebastiano came to help her out when she needed it.
I think it's the beauty and the fact that it's, still very affordable wines. Makes a paradise for the wine lovers. And the fact that the territory in itself, it's really beautiful. So once you can start traveling again, I invite you all to Chianti Classico. I invite you all to visit all the townships and enjoy wine and food. And if Jeff and I are around, we'll be happy to join you in your wine and food experience.
Excellent. And thank you all very, very much. And I look forward to the next 2 sessions, because there's a lot more to explore.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Faye.
Thank you, Sebastiano.
Evening.
Thank you, Faye.
My wife says hello as well. Let's put it on here. There she is. There she is.
Hi.
Goodbye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye. And Forza Viola.
Forza Viola.
Forza Viola.
I'm going to open up the breakout rooms again. If anybody wants to carry on their evening in the breakout room, carry on drinking their wine and the rest of it. that is possible. And if not, then I will see you and I'll come through, in fact, the various breakout rooms and come and say hello to you all. So thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you ever so much, Sebastiano. That was a fantastic evening. Thank you, Jeff. Your enthusiasm and passion for Chianti Classico is just amazing. So I look forward to seeing everybody on the 10th of October, where we have Paola. And yeah, I'll catch you soon, either in the breakout room or on the 10th of October. So take care and have a good evening.
Ciao, ciao.
Oh, everybody. Voila. Hi, John.
How are you?
Good, good, good. How are you?
Pretty good. We're all right. This is our first event like this. So anyway, this is my husband Evo.
Hi.
She's from Bridget.
You briefly, when it was Bridget's birthday, you were coming in.
Yes, we're on Bridget's birthday call. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Hi, Sebastiano.
You're on mute, Sebastiano.
Jan.
Voila, there
So
we
you send the thing on LinkedIn, so I'll be
I sent,
connecting to you.
yeah, I sent you the link.
Tuscany.
Yeah. Oh,
Hey,
there's
Jeff.
Jeff. Hey, how you
Hey.
doing?
What is it?
Look,
We
this is Belgium.
yeah, we're done with
This
the
is
wine
from our
already.
town.
That's a big one.
Have you ever eaten these grapes, Sebastiano? Look
No.
how big they are.
Never seen so big.
Belgian table grapes.
They could be Texan.
No. These are-
It could be Texan.
they're
yeah.
only from here.
Only from there.
Like, what?
But
one
don't show it
grape-
to the Texan because he will plant some more.
just to make sure, one grape is about 50 cents.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's extremely expensive. This little basket was the basket of grapes was 27 euros.
Wow.
Yeah, because they're grown here in the village we live in Overijse and the one next to it in little greenhouses. It's all by hand. So this isn't something that we buy except once a year, you know, like
What's the taste like? What they taste like?
Heaven.
Heaven. Need to come and taste it.
they were
Yeah,
very,
sure.
very
To
nice.
come to Belgium. Which part of Belgium? Is it the French part or the Dutch part?
No,
Spanish part.
we're Brussels. It's just outside of
it's
Brussels.
just on the southeast corner of Brussels, just below
Okay.
it. It's Flanders, but it's just below us. One town is Wallonie, the French part.
Okay.
And it's these two towns here, and they grow the grapes.
Yeah.
It's only our town and the one next to it. And anyway, but it's very exciting to meet you guys because Faye is a friend of mine, right? Bridget. And then we joined. This is our first virtual wine tasting, and I am a very happy